folder here.
Hi, Matt.
Welcome, Tom. Welcome to all the attendees on the call. Today we're going to be talking about a few things here. Let me just get this slide advanced. I'll go into some basic housekeeping. Anytime you can pop in and ask questions through the chat or question part of your GoToWebinar app. We may end up interrupting the flow and answering those, or we actually have a Q&A section at the end. So I'm going to do a quick overview of who we are at eFolder, what our business does, and then give an introduction to Tom Watson and why he's here, and some of his story and background, and go into a little bit of what he calls the art of the service level agreement, which is really talks about the transition his business has gone through over time. And then, like I said earlier, we'll go into some question and answer, and then if there's any suggestions that you have for future Tom Watson show. For those that think you are on a golf webinar, you could probably go ahead and exit now. This is about MSP, growing your MSP, becoming more successful, offering your IT services. So if you're here for the golf Tom Watson show,
you'll have more time for golf though.
yeah.
I
love it. And so just a quick overview of eFolder. What I like when at an upper level describe eFolder as is the most powerful suite of data protection solutions specifically designed for MSPs. And so, we've got a number of solutions. You have Anchor as a file sync and share. You have our Cloud Finder product that's designed to back up mainly your Office 365 offering. You have Replibit, which is an appliance-based BDR solution that saves you a ton of time over some of the other products in the space, really managing and maintaining your BDR solution. We recently acquired Axient, and so we have the Axient BRC product, and then and that's an appliance-based backup solution as well that focuses a lot on the cloud SLA recoveries that you have for your customers. So the ones that need a really fast cloud recovery, Axient's the product. And then we have the product that eFolder was founded on, which is backup for files. A lot of people don't really realize how large we are. eFolder has over 3,000 partners, totally focused on the channel. We have over 300 employees spread all over the place. About 100 are in our R&D group, and so we're really focused on delivering you amazing technologies for running your MSP. We've got 4 enterprise-grade data centers spread around the world. That's just to give you the quick overview of the company. All these solutions were designed for MSPs, and oddly enough, eFolder was an MSP, and they spun out of it. So we really understand this space, and all these products are built for you. Before I get into specifically on Tom, I wanted to give a little bit of background on what a director of MSP best practices is, and why he's here. So some of you may know or not that I actually own my own MSP called Nemesis out of Toledo, Ohio. We formed it in 1999. Started out like most did, break fix, charging way too low of a rate. My first contract was $25 an hour. I thought it was great because we were only paying the guy $20 an hour. We're making $5 an hour profit, and I didn't have to do any work. But no, so we started Nemesis in '99. Over the years, we saw the need to shift to some sort of recurring model, and that's what made us create the product that we all know now as LabTech software. Really, the purpose is to automate some things across all of the different networks we supported, and then be able to charge them a monthly fee for it. And so we ended up, I went from that and took an investment from ConnectWise. LabTech merged into ConnectWise. And, while I was there at ConnectWise and LabTech, I always saw this, where the different vendors were really kind of falling short for the MSPs that use their products. ConnectWise had 12,000 partners at the time. eFolder has 3,000 partners. And we're all solving the same problems over and over again. And so the idea of bringing Tom on is to really help build a set of tools, standards, best practices that we can give to our eFolder partners and some people that are just learning about eFolder and haven't bought from us yet. Some standard solutions that we know have been successful across the partner base that we serve now, and have Tom come in and really learn about the way how are people failing in their MSP, how are people succeeding in their MSP, and very specifically drilling down and figuring out what makes certain MSPs successful and others not. How can we help you grow? How can we help you be more successful? With that, I'll let Tom talk a little bit about his background and what he did at his MSP, and then I'm going to ask some questions as we go about that.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I'm happy to be here at eFolder. I've been here for a month, and I'm really here for the partners and to help teach people and help people and learn how you can grow your MSP based on all the things I went through over the years, which we honestly believe that if we can help people kind of skip that curve, your business will be much more profitable quickly and not have to go through what both Matt and I went through. Learning these things.
Accelerate the learning curve.
We can bend that curve a little bit for you and teach you a lot. And so, yes, I did own an MSP for 15 years. And as you can see, I exited it 2 years ago. It was very high margin. We're running about 40% net on our service level agreements. Really started calling ourselves a managed service provider starting in about 2009.
Okay.
And then it was a pretty quick ramp after that.
So at that time, so you were all break fix. And in 2009, you chose to focus on it, or you had some managed services and then you chose to focus on it?
Yeah, I was an engineer starting from the mid 90s, and then I worked at a service provider. And when I broke off and started my own, I came back to the man who owned the company. It had contracts, and I bought a couple of contracts from him. But I was about running up until about 2008. I was about 80% break fix, and I had those two large contracts. So I had something to look at in terms of managed services.
Nice. And so what made you decide to switch from that 80% to being predominantly, and how did you plan out that change?
Well, this was towards the recession, 2008, 2009. And as everyone probably knows, when you do break fix, you're doing the work, and then you're waiting often, a couple weeks to a month to send the invoice out, and now you're waiting up to another month or more to get paid. And it was kind of rough at that time. And so I swore after that was kind of done and kind of weathered through that recession that I would never be in that position with cash flow again. And so I restructured the business with the idea that it was going to be all contracts, or if it wasn't specifically a service level agreement contract, it would be prepaid hours, which is still a contract because you had to pay for it before you had it. And that I would require prepayment before the month started for everyone. So you got no service unless we were paid for the ongoing month. And so I had to kind of work through, how do you sell that to people? And
especially ones that you said that, like you said, they're really not paying you until 45 to 60 days after you do the work.
Yeah.
And then you're telling me you're going to pay me in advance.
Yeah, I had to go through that. But what I learned is if I bundled more things together and I gave them something that was tangible and they could see all of these services and maybe throw some things in like backup software, throw in their antivirus, maybe throw in some hardware, backup drives, BDR devices, whatever it was, that they could kind of start to see the value of that. And I had all the numbers, like everyone does, for how much work we were doing and what we were selling them.
Yeah, because you were billing them per month anyway.
Yeah, but I was able to do that and only lost about probably 10% of the clients. And the ones who didn't want to do it, I still sold them a contract, but I made it, they had to prepay hours.
Prepaid blocks.
Yeah.
That's an interesting. So you didn't send them to pasture. You found an option that economically made sense with your portfolio as you shipped them. So there's lots of MSPs that go through this transition. I know a lot of them are through it. 10 years ago, people weren't really doing this at all. Now MSP is just the way you would start your practice. What what do you think most people have a hard time with in making that transition with? And how did you, what do you think about the way you did it was different?
Well, I saw a lot of people and a lot of the books out there were like, you make this jump, you draw a line in the sand, which I did, but they make the jump to where they're trying to charge every client an all-you-can-eat flat rate, which I had a problem with, and I couldn't wrap my head around. If you had a small client that maybe could only pay you $1,000 a month, do you really want to risk giving them an unlimited hours? And so what I did was, for the larger clients, we get into $3,000 or more, and I would always try to make those unlimited hours. But if they were smaller, I would just cap the hours.
Okay.
And so that gave me more flexibility. So I did not go with this model of everyone has to be unlimited hours. And I also found that
and then you would just bill them hourly for time.
There's a reduced hourly rate if they went on an overage. But
got it.
What I found with the sweet spot in this was that if you could go into a network and you could leverage, how hard you worked at first, we could go into the network even when we'd run for years, and we would just decide, okay, even though we're giving them unlimited hours and we're usually here 20, 30 hours a month, we're going to go in and we're going to put 60 hours in this month. We're going to find a way we're going to lose money on maybe even this contract the first 1 or 2 months, because we get that network in tip-top shape, and then our hours start just going down, and now we're down to, we used to do 20 to 30, now we're down to 5 to 10. So using that proactive model and approach and using that so that later on we are actually making much more money on it, that client, even though we're charging them the same as what we were when they were break fix.
Did you learn that halfway through, or did you take that strategy from the beginning?
I wasn't sure about it. I wasn't sure, how much you could give a client, and it doesn't work for all of them, that if you gave them a lot up front or a lot of attention on their network, how well it would work. But it kind of came true over time, and developed a model to do that.
What I see as a challenge is a lot of people that I talk to struggle. It's hard enough to shift your customers all to buy from you in a different way.
Yeah.
To switch from, hey, I'm paying you when you're out on site, hourly to be there. So it's hard enough to go through that marketing change. But what most MSPs kind of fail at is the actual operational change. So you switch from delivering things in an inefficient, ad hoc way to billing them at a flat rate and still delivering them in an inefficient ad hoc way, not being proactive. So what types of procedures, it sounds like you went in and you really fixed a lot of the network issues, but how did you change the month-to-month operation of those businesses?
Exactly. A heavy-duty network assessment going in. So we knew everything they had, and we used RMM tools, LabTech, and then we had extensive checklists and things like ConnectWise to onboard a client, and then extensive lists of going through about getting that network in tip-top shape. So we had as many of them, homogenous as we could, and just having the right technicians who could stick to a list, follow it, and make sure those things were done, and fully document the network. And that willingness to lose money up front right there, with the knowledge that my whole basis is that if I can get money now from clients, money now is worth a lot more than money later, because I'm not paying credit card fees, I'm not paying interest over here. And if I did that, I would have more money up front, which enabled me then to go hire better people to do these kind of things. And it allowed me to have a stronger business where I could have a broader range of packages and services and deliver to that client what I promised them.
Okay. So now, you sold your MSP a year ago. I sketched out on a napkin to Adam Slutskin generally, what I was thinking around this best practices toolkit, and how I wanted to go about, learning what we wanted to do, and what made you decide to join eFolder? So why not go and do another MSP?
Yeah, well, I did know Adam, and Adam called me a couple of months ago and told me that you had an idea, and I've met you before too.
Yeah.
Been to some conferences before, and it sounded interesting because I've been out of kind of the MSP world for a couple of years, and in a way miss that kind of a team camaraderie. I like, as you've talked about, I mean, it's a channel where we know each other, and we're not afraid to help each other out too. And I think it's great that you can have an MSP, and I used to go speak to other MSPs and give them things for free and my tools, and you can do that, and it just makes our whole channel stronger overall. So when it came up and you and I talked on the phone, it sounded great because I wasn't sure I was ready for another MSP. But you know what? But I always did enjoy my last couple of years of my career as owning an MSP. I enjoyed more the training and speaking and promoting entrepreneurship. And so it seemed like an opportunity to come in and do that from a perspective of with a company that was committed to helping partners actually growing their businesses. Of course, knowing that, you know, if we do that, I mean, it's just to build a strong community, but also we do have a great product line here. And I'd even used, you know, I resold Anchor years ago.
Yeah.
And so I knew a little about it, but I felt good about the opportunity and that I was coming in to facilitate others more than anything else.
Okay. So, you know, we talked about a little bit as that story about the transitions over time. Do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, the different MSP models that you see out there and how you think you can help over time help the MSPs of eFolder make these transitions?
Yeah, and I know a lot about break fix for sure. I did a lot of this for years, and I kind of look at break fix and going to the bottom to service level agreements, full managed service provider as not necessarily a jump that you have to make all at once, but that all of these things have pieces going to them. So from break fix, if you have a client that isn't necessarily ready for that contract, it's fine. Sell them blocks of prepaid hours when they have to reload on hours before they get more service. And every time it gets down to 2 hours from 10 or whatever, it recharges them. That kind of thing. So that is the type of contract.
Did you find that, I know like when I did work, when Nemesis was mostly just break fix and project work, when I sent them the bill at the end of the month and, you know, we worked for 10 hours on a 4-year-old workstation that they refused to let us replace,
yeah.
But they would still complain about the invoice, obviously, when I did the work, but we wouldn't have the money. And one of the things that my dad taught me very early on in business is he was gold rules. And what you do with that shift of a prepayment of hours is that you've got the gold.
Yeah. You're right.
Before the bill is sent, so you just basically deduct off. Did you find that with that model that people complained less about about the bill when it deducted off their hours?
No, you can if you're asked to. You can provide that list of what you did, but ideally they knew you were there, and you have the hours, and then you send a quick summary, and usually they're going to pay that new bill for the reload on hours when they need you to come out.
Yeah.
So there's another need. You have the gold once again.
Yeah. So they didn't complain as much about where you spent your time.
Absolutely right. That kind of went away, and that is a type of contract. I mean, it is a managed service. I mean, it's not that full spectrum inside of it. It is a managed service, and then projects too. I mean, this is when we used to get killed. You know, we make you only pay for half of the hardware before, you know, we delivered it. So we're paying for the whole hardware up front. I mean, you don't contact Dell or HP and and get it for free. And so requiring them to pay at least half up front for the project work and 100% of the hardware, that kind of thing. And then a la carte.
Setting up your business smart. You know, one of the things that in business school that they did, the professors were all so obsessed about Dell and the way they set up their business model to where they did 60, 90 day terms on all their vendors, but all their customers paid them with cash up front. So they're funding next month's builds and hardware with this month's revenue.
Then they have Dell Finance where they can then lend that money out to other places.
Yeah, it's just a cash machine.
Yeah.
It's funny, just there's so much in business can be really improved by just being a little bit smarter with cash and with cash flow.
Get your money now.
And you get your money now, and the risk isn't all on you. I learned, about 10 years into Nemesis, that all of our equipment in transit wasn't insured, which I don't know how many people know that, but a standard insurance policy for a company doesn't insure that equipment while it's traveling. So if you have one tech that has a car crash with $20,000 worth of equipment in there, there's risk there.
That's a good point. Protect yourself in all those basic ways. Yeah.
But yeah, getting the money ahead of time for projects. It's just being confident and selling it that way.
Yeah, and then we have a la carte here on this list, and a la carte is what what a lot of us have all done. It's getting harder to do now because we don't have the Exchange server at the client, and we don't have a copy of backup exec and stuff like that. We're leveraging services from a variety of different companies, and so it's really hard to manage selling a la carte to clients now. I mean, you're going to line item an invoice, and you're going to have 10 things on it.
Yeah. So by that you mean a la carte would be, hey, you've got a Cisco router that's this much a month to support. You've got a server, it's this much.
25 Office 365.
You have Exchange, maybe an Exchange server, it's this much a month. 15 desktops or 15 users, it's this much a month. Is that what you mean when you say a la carte?
Yeah, a la carte all the way down to they got their antivirus and this and that, and I bundled everything together.
Yeah, versus when you say user-based would be more of a bundle of all that stuff and then charging a monthly
per user.
Per user.
But I like to get away from that because I don't like to then, if you have a user base or per machine base, which is pretty dangerous now because people, what is a machine and what's not, and then get away from those all and try to just come in at this is what it costs to run your network.
And then what do you do once a year? You just take a look at what if they all of a sudden expand and add 10 employees?
Yeah, had to have some things in there. So rather than do a per user increase, I did a threshold, like this covers your network up to X number of users and up to X number of machines, and then would give room, like when it goes up to 5, then here's the increase. But I would try to make sure it wasn't something that's quantifiable down to a per user, because then it becomes, shifting in and out. If anyone has a home healthcare client out there, you'll know what I mean, because these companies will change. They'll have 15 different employees a week coming in and out the door.
Yeah, it makes it hard.
So I try to make it just a flat rate per network, and one of the things we're going to offer is a calculator for this.
Yeah, and that's where I've seen, talking to a lot of the MSPs that are successful and gotten pretty large, that seems to be where most people are shifting, is that here's your price per month. In the agreement, you have a few things that trigger increases or at least a conversation about an increase, but it stays pretty flat. One of the challenges we had at Nemesis, because we had switched to mostly MSP before 2008, but we did it all per user, and we had these law firms that were doing business type work, that were busy hiring lots of temp, but they stayed. It wasn't temp labor. And then as soon as that 2008 timeframe hit, our law firms basically cut their staff in half. And all of a sudden, while we thought we were protected with managed service agreements, because we didn't have any terms in there that said, during this time, you're committed to this number of users, or an SLA agreement that didn't it all automatically fluctuated down. And it made 2008 and 2009 pretty rough.
Yeah.
So while we thought we were protected, it wasn't as bad as it could have been to where they just shut off. A lot of places will be like, you know what, we're just not going to do IT. We're not going to call Nemesis this month, guys.
We have 20 extra computers sitting here because we have half the employees.
Pull another out of the closet. So, but it's interesting, that I think that this has been the shift over time is to more of a total bundled approach with SLA that doesn't just auto adjust. It's not as much of a commodity.
Don't make them be able to pick it apart. That's my thing,
if you line item it, they're going to negotiate it.
Yeah, so I would go in, I would have their numbers from previous years, so I'd know how many antivirus they're using, how much backup, and all kind of stuff. And I would kind of line item it then, so I could show them how much they were paying and find some way to maybe charge them a little less. I know a lot of people out there in the industry say they go in and charge people a lot more. I usually didn't try to. I usually tried to line it up with what they had been paying me historically.
And then you gain through gaining efficiencies.
I did through gaining efficiencies and also renegotiating contracts with vendors. Going and finding other vendors where I could get the tools, they're bundled together, however it was that I could then leverage those as a sweeter package and get cheaper pricing.
Because you'd basically, like for an antivirus solution, even if your customers are using 5 different ones, you could organize that all under one bigger contract with a vendor you can trust.
Exactly. I get a big one and I get it through a company I already had a relationship with. Like RMM, you could get it you can get it from a lot of different places and reduce that because it's one big block you're getting.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. So we're talking a little bit earlier about this what we're doing around best practices, and so how do you think you can over time really help deal with the different challenges that MSPs face?
Yeah, well, the big thing I've seen is, of course, throughout the end user businesses, we're going to have network security. And operating in the Washington, D.C. area had a great deal of clients that were political targets. So you dealt a lot with that. And so you're going to have ones where if you have clients that are particularly open to that kind of thing, like cyber attacks, that can be a big point to actually negotiate and have services built around, and in like managed services contract that covers specifically like cybersecurity. And I think that's where there's a lot of money to be made in that. It's having a specialty, a niche within the managed services community. And you can sell an IT niche products and services often much better than generalized. So talking about things like that, changing IT landscape in terms of, and kind of 2 and 3 go together for me. I look at these as, we've moved to a much more mobile world, and dealing with that, dealing with the fact that a lot of MSPs have been purchased by larger MSPs, and understand that doesn't make them more powerful than you. Often they're giving a much more generalized service, and everyone's getting the same service. It's the smaller MSPs who can still offer the customized, the owners of the business's services. So not to be intimidated by that, to actually look at that as, sure, you can go talk to the big guys over here, but understand that when you're talking to me, you can get me on the phone, we'll respond, and we know your network.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've seen is, some of the larger ones have done a good job scaling as they acquire, but there's lots of challenges too.
Yeah.
As you acquire these different businesses, and unless they acquire them with with a lot of due diligence, there's surprises, there's lack of standards. You end up with you acquire 5 different MSPs, and you have 30 different backup solutions once you aggregate them all. It's a real challenge. So some things are easy to scale, others aren't, and there's a process that they have to go through, and so they don't necessarily have strength with size.
Absolutely right. And then hit some obstacles to success. And this is what I often see is that I put in a PSA in RMM, back in, I think it was 2005, 2006. So when it wasn't really as popular then, and
it was expensive then too, right?
Actually, it ended up being a lot cheaper for me because, like, ConnectWise, I bought the full version. So I owned it.
Oh, a lot of them were selling.
Owned the whole thing.
Own the license.
Yeah, which is unusual now to hear about that because everything's
expensive
lovely
in the beginning, but then
and but not having those kind of things in place. I mean, not having quoting software. Not having just an RMM tool that can do some of that work for you, and not having a lot of documentation. And then so the best practice, going across documentation, homogenizing networks, trying to figure out your niche within the MSP space. I think that's important.
Differentiating
yourself. We did a lot of law firms.
Yeah, Nemsys did a lot of law firms.
And that's good because lawyers work a certain way.
Can use things like the words docket system and industry terms.
And you maybe then know industry software packages like ProLaw or something like that, time slips. And so I think it's very important to look at niches and understand where you can fit into them. But the big thing is,
one of the things I learned is you can make a niche out of just like one customer. If you have a customer that you're like, wow, we're really profitable with this manufacturing company,
exactly,
and they use this tool set, you can actually start to build product literature of your services around that one. You don't need to have a dozen of them.
You're absolutely right.
But if you have one that can be a referral and it's profitable and you like supporting that industry, you can scale it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like nonprofits, they have a certain way they work.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, and
nonprofits are challenging. We have a lot of Nemsys, and they, it depends on how they make decisions a little bit. Law firms are challenging too. Is like, they make decisions by committee, and then you got to sometimes go present to their board. But once you get good at, getting all the lawyers to be on the same page, or the board members to approve your package that you're coming with.
The nonprofits often work a few less hours per year too. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
You don't get the emergency calls.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like one of the big obstacles are you own an MSP and, illustrating to the customer, what's the value proposition here? Why should I pay you up front?
Yeah.
And that's something I think I can really teach is that, especially, if people have questions and they want to say something, ask, what do you do in this situation? We want to be able to get into that and help you all out, because I think that the same questions get thrown back at us no matter who we are of, why should I sign this? Especially if it's more money per year. And what do you say to them? Because the thing is that if you've been offering protections to the client, like 24/7 access, that you'll take care of things, you've been offering, basically guarantees. To me, those things should never be guaranteed unless they are contained within an SLA under a full managed service agreement.
Yeah.
And don't make promises unless someone's paying you to keep promises like that. Because I think that was the big mistake I made. It sounds like maybe, did you have some of that, Matt, where you gave a lot away for free?
Yeah, it was in the first managed service agreements. We didn't really put a lot about what it is we were going to deliver for that fixed monthly fee. And over the years, we got more and more specific about what's included with the offering and what's not.
More granular.
Yeah, and one of the things, when we think about the different things that we're going to kind of package together is NEMSIS has so 99. So we've been in business for 18 years. We've got a proposal and contract template that we've perfected over 18 years that we're going to deliver to eFolder partners so they can maybe incorporate some of those clauses in the agreement that they haven't thought of or haven't put in there. And that's one of the things is that, as Tom, as you work to engage with partners, and what do they put in their agreements? They might have some clauses.
Contract language, yeah.
Yeah, like a phrase around, heck, what happens if for some reason they don't pay you for that hardware that you pre-ordered on that project that they only paid half for, and putting some extra teeth in there to where you feel confident. One of the things that Tom hasn't said is it your mom and dad, or just your mom was? They're both of your parents were attorneys.
Yeah. So yeah.
So they helped you. You got raised thinking through of what could happen.
Well, I ended up the contracts. I ended up writing them all myself. I had them reviewed because the families were involved in the business. But I can write contract level law, and so that where it's stuff that can be inserted and tweaked as needed. And that was the big thing, is how many times you got hit over the head because you didn't protect yourself in a contract early on. And I can usually see those things. Like we're talking about the overages. What happens when when a company, one of your clients acquires another company?
Yeah.
That can really hit you hard.
Yeah.
And making sure you have a clause in there. If you acquire another entity, here's what happens. If you bump up 10 more users, here's what happens.
Yeah.
If you decide that every person's going to have a desktop and a laptop, you want to make sure you cover that.
Yeah, is the phone supported? I know nowadays the phone doesn't cause too much support for calls, but back in the day, used to be more. So so those are the things. So helping you price and package your contracts, dealing with common objections and some scripts as to how you've overcome certain things, and setting up your business smart so you're collecting money in advance, and then being able to position that to the customer so that you can get them to say yes to that versus getting squeezed. So it's still early on. Tom just started last month. What have you got planned? Upcoming the next couple months. What can the people on this call expect? We're going to do these webinars about different topics, and we're going to do them every 2 weeks, you said, or what's the?
We're going to do 3 before the end of the year.
Okay.
So this is the first one. We have 2 more planned. We're going to try to get, and hopefully if people start having some questions, that'd be great. I can tell you what I want to do is I want to also bring in other people who've been very successful, either have sold their MSPs or are still active in it, going from a couple different areas. One is, if you want to talk about what do you need to do to grow your business in that direction?
Yeah.
I have definite ideas of the changes you have to make to your business.
Yeah, where are you struggling?
I sold mine from the first offer, which was a full price offer, and in less than a month. So
did you put it on the market to sell?
It was put on, yes, it was put on by brokers.
Okay, and then did you know the broker, or?
It was just like, a highly suggested group of brokers that had sold these type of business before.
Other MSPs in your area?
I think they put it on some places like this, Buy Sell, and a couple of other places where tech companies show up. But the reason why it sold quickly was, no debt, and we had all our money up front every month.
Not much risk.
Yeah, it was extremely low risk. It was an easy value proposition for someone buying it.
40% profit margin
on the SLA. Sold hardware and software also. Yeah, so the numbers were very easy, and main thing is though you knew you had your money, and there are specific things you have to do in your business if you want to be able to do that. But then we've got some real interesting partners. Since I've been here, Matt, I've talked to at least 7 or 8 different type of interviews with existing eFolder partners, and who have been very successful. I'm trying to find out what they've done that have made them successful using not only eFolder products, but also just as a managed service provider. And I've got 2 of them lined up to actually come in and be on the webinars with us.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
This year?
Absolutely, yeah. And I've got one I just talked to the other day out of Florida, Jordy at CRSTC, and he's going to provide us his kind of pricing calculator sheet as well.
Okay.
He's trained a number of people in this, and he wants to contribute to the MSP community.
Yeah, and as we learn different things from partners like him, we can share them amongst all. And so, it's going to be, we haven't named the program yet, but we're going to be naming it and really talking about it. I got one question from Richard here. Can we get a copy of the slides? So yeah, we'll have Patrick, who helps us run these webinars, get slides to everybody. And I got a question from, how would you pronounce that name, Tom?
I can't even see his
Gurgis. And the question is, we're currently at a break-fix model, but are transitioning to a full MSP model. We're essentially flipping the company on its back. I hear you, I've been there, and transforming it entirely. Are there any unseen pitfalls we should avoid during this intense transition period? My thought, at least on that, is make sure you're really thoughtful with it. Don't move too fast. Try to experiment with the first couple. Don't feel like you need to go and present to all your customers all at once.
Have a few different options like we were talking about.
Yeah, get some. I really like what Tom said about doing a prepaid option, that works, that you don't end up losing customers.
Limited hours for smaller clients.
But yeah, so pitfalls that we fall into that Nemsys completely screwed up is that we didn't think through the operations side of it, getting proactive, thinking about how you're going to become more efficient, because you are going to if you don't fix the problems on the network and have a good solid operational process for handling customers that have an unlimited plan now, where they're used to paying you per hour, you can really ramp up hours. The first people that are going to sign with you are going to be the ones that feel they can benefit most from that unlimited time. And so getting limits in there, thinking that through, signing on customers that aren't going to blow you up.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is have the protections in place. The most dangerous, as we all probably know, are the very small networks, where the owners of the smaller businesses often are so tied into every little bit. It's often what limits their growth, and they often are a little more nitpicky on you. And I would have to protect myself from them and kind of train them how to be the right MSP client, which is I'll give you this many hours, but I can't give you unlimited. It just doesn't work with the really small ones.
And as you learn more and learn more about them and the different business types, you can change the contract. But be conservative in the beginning. Don't price yourself too cheap. Just because you feel it's awesome, you're going to get, if they're averaging 2,000 a month spend with you, and you're going to guarantee that spend for yourself, they might end up overusing. We found as Nemsys did the transition, that usage went up 30%.
Wow.
On the initial contracts, they went up 30%. And so have an operational plan of how you're going to be more efficient before you roll it out. Another question. You want to pop
I just want to say, to get back that one question was, one of the things you do for the clients that are really good, go get that contract value per year, and when you go to them, everyone's probably heard of this, try to get them pay for a year up front, give them 1 month free. I mean, it is unbelievable what it will do when you have that cash to finance, especially putting a lot of these things in place that you're doing now.
Because you're going to have to pay, if you don't have an RMM PSA, you're going to have to pay for that.
Yep.
You maybe it makes more sense to get a higher end, system administrator in there that can help you with process.
You have to get better people for this. You got to have people that can keep good records, and that's often the big difference, between the okay technicians and the great ones are how well do they document.
Yeah. So next question we have: do we have an example of SLAs or what should be in an SLA?
Well, we certainly are going to provide sample SLAs and language for them. That's something that, as we just talked about, putting in protections for yourself about how much data you're going to back up, how many users you're going to cover, how many antivirus licenses. We will have sample SLAs. I know I talked to Jordy. He is going to give us some of his sample materials and some other ones. Unfortunately, I don't have any I can provide right now, but we will certainly have those.
And here's a question from Alex. Do you have any SLA templates that can be shared? You answered that. Or resources to help you do it on your own. Can you speak to your unique value proposition in the legal vertical?
Well, in the legal vertical, of course, I did mention parents with lawyers, so I knew people in there, but I had been to school for time slips, pro law, a number of other ones. I'll tell you, if you go into a niche like that, get as an owner and probably someone else that was to be with you, get some specific training in the software that niche uses.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me lawyers. We also had a lot of plumbing companies because we knew a particular plumbing package.
Yeah.
And and plumbers actually need a lot of computers now. I mean, they're highly dependent on them and do their billing off tablets and all kinds of things. And so you can make your niche built around anything, but go get the training in those like industry specific applications.
That makes sense.
And then have the language too that covers them. If it's the kind of business that runs 24-hour, have the language in your SLA that it's covering them for their needs and understand. So you have a contract that is for law firms because you know what they need and what you need to support. And you also know like in law, if they do federal law, what they're required to do in terms of protecting and backing up the data of their clients.
So know what their compliance.
Exactly.
And one of the things that I found is that, at Nemsys, we got a couple, pretty well-known law firms.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so they were willing to be references and they talked to us and they would talk to prospects if we put them in there. We just made a list in a packet of, hey, here's the law firms we service. Here's the phone number. You got to be confident in your business.
A reference sheet.
Yeah, the reference sheet. Yeah, that's what we did. And then one of the things that I did too is, lawyers meet other lawyers. Most of the time, it's actually a part of the way they have to operate. They're not allowed to go down on and talk directly to just business owners that aren't attorneys. And so they work with each other a lot. So we ask for referrals. And they might be on opposing sides of the table, but when the one guy had a problem with this computer, he'd say, we use Nemsys. They're a really great company, and we get a lot of referrals from lawyers because they really network a lot.
And when what we used to do is I used to have these lawyers, and they definitely fight. They fight against everyone, right? But they also fight against each other, and they would split apart these law firms. And I would, I mean, there was literally one that split up in a fist fight, like in a conference room like this. But I kept both. I kept both of those law firms, and split the networks apart. And you can do that in like a vertical like that. You can actually maintain clients if they split or merge and stuff like that. And that's a beautiful thing, is that find that niche that you're good at, train in it, understand the language they need to cover what they're doing, and then really market to that particular niche. And I often see that MSPs are not successful in marketing. You probably noticed this too.
Yeah, it's hard. It's generalized. It's hard to really say why what you're doing is valuable or better. It's hard to differentiate with that. A lot of it's abstract, and so it's hard to kind of make that value proposition. But yeah, having a vertical really does help you focus.
Yeah, it does.
That's what I found with the law firm. That was the first industry-specific packet that we made. And we just started dropping it off everywhere. Our sales guy would just walk into these law buildings and just say, hey, give this to the person that makes the decisions on your
Absolutely.
IT. We'd actually get appointments. The good thing in IT is not easy. Users get frustrated often, so there's lots of opportunities to swoop in and take customers from other people. We'll do this as the last question because it looks like we're running out of time, and we see that some people are dropping off. Tom, he's going to put you on the spot. Alex is when do you think your sample SLAs will be available?
Well, we were first planning on next having like a sample quoting tool.
Okay.
But we talked about having a repository, and I think I can start working on that and see what we can find out there that someone's able to give us as a sample SLA, and I'm sure we can make that available.
Yeah, I know. I think there's some SLAs in the Nemesis one that Blake made.
I'm willing to work on that and get that done
within a month.
Yeah, I think probably even just a couple of weeks I could probably have something up, and we're gonna have some kind of repository where we can put these things and people can get to them. So yeah, I would say like 3 weeks probably max. We'll have something up there, maybe even sooner.
Alex was like, hey man, I got this contract that I'm trying to get signed, closing a deal.
My email address is up there on one of the slides, I believe.
Yeah.
Somewhere. If you want to, Alex, if you want to drop me an email too, I can just make sure you're updated on that.
Is it on the front slide? Is it on here?
It's not.
No. It's
It's in the chat window, gentlemen. It's in the chat window.
Chat window. Okay,
right,
there you go. Okay, well,
I guess that was our moderator right there.
Yeah, there's our moderator. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to join us this afternoon. We'll be doing these on a regular basis. Feel free to email us with any suggestions on how we can help, how we can deliver more tools, more best practices that can help you get better at what you do. Tom, any final words?
No, but I'll tell you what. I mean, I know it's hard out there when you're trying to make this jump, or you have made it, and we all get like kind of kicks sometimes with some of these contracts we put out there. It wasn't all sunny days for me, but if you tweak these things and you find your niche and you learn how to market to it, and then you really have a process for going out there and documenting these networks and then getting them in tip-top shape, and you have a nice bundled package, you can really make money in managed services still. It's still there. You've got to operate tightly, but you can do it, and you can build a business that will sustain you for as long as you want, or one you can go out there and sell at some point.
Okay, well, thanks. Have a good afternoon, everybody, and a great rest of your week.